So we're trying to offer the candidate an experience that they want to go through. So we're trying to make it as non-cumbersome as possible. So removing unnecessary requirements within the process and trying to really get to the nub of, what is their qualification, what is their experience in the childcare industry, what is their motivation, so why do they want to work with the children that we have in our care.
Welcome to the All in Recruitment podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for our weekly episodes. My name is Lydia, and joining us today is Natalie Edmunds, who heads talent acquisition for Busy Bees Nurseries. Welcome, Natalie, and thank you for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Lydia. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So walk us through your experience in the talent space, Natalie. What's kept you in this industry so far?
I just love it. Talent is an ever-evolving, innovative industry full of huge characters, passionate people who really care about making a difference. And whether that's creating an employer brand for everyone to be proud of, or implementing organisational change that drives a business forward, or just being part of, one of life's major events, along with having a baby, marriage, or moving house, getting that job in the career that you've always wanted is huge, and to be a part of that is a privilege.
So what is the pull there for you? What drives your passion for that?
Oh, well, I've got two boys. They are 9 and 5, who are just the best people ever. And I think when you become a parent, when you love what you do anyway at work, and then you become a parent, you want to be able to deliver something that actually has an impact on society and on the world, becomes much more of a driver for you. And that's how I feel about Busy Bees Nurseries, being able to bring in the best people to look after the lovely little babies and children that we have the privilege of being, caring for each day, is huge. So that connection is the driver.
Absolutely, the sense of ownership, that sense of involvement, really, because you're also raising children on your own, right? So, and that brings us to just what kind of impact would we have on the children that are under our care, right? So childhood education and the childcare industry itself is definitely critical for those who are seeing the importance of impact, especially in the future, right? So leading talent acquisition for a big brand such as Busy Bee Nurseries, what are some key areas of focus that you've paid attention to in the past year?
So since I've joined the business, we've been looking at really going back to basics. So it's a tough industry to be in right now. I think a lot of people have been experiencing skill shortages.
Right.
So we needed to have a little look at our processes and our ways of working to understand, how we can improve them and set ourselves up for success. So it's been very much an audit of current processes, having a look at how we operate, and trying to diversify our attraction methods has been sort of the primary focus, and also building relationships with the business. Some of the relationships that we had previously weren't quite where they needed to be. But over the last 6 months, we've set about putting that right, which is, everyone has to pull together in talent acquisition. It isn't just talent acquisition's responsibility to deliver for the business. We need everybody who has a sort of hand in that to be on board, and that's what we've been doing and working hard at over the last 6 months.
And what are some of the trends maybe that you've seen currently in the childhood education and even childcare industry, right, when it comes to talent acquisition?
So I alluded to it before, so huge competition. There's more and more interest from a business perspective in this sector, along with the increased funding in the UK from the government in 2024 and 2025. We see this as potentially driving demand for more qualified staff in the sector, that we haven't seen, that level of demand before. It's leading organisations to look at improving things like the candidate experience and a focus on diversity and inclusion to gain a competitive edge, and to be able to expand those talent pools. The other big one is retention. It's a huge focus. The job is so rewarding and it's amazing, but it's hard. Looking after little people can be really demanding. You have to be patient, nurturing. You have to provide opportunities for the children to learn and grow. And all of this whilst you're following, quite set early years frameworks and adhering to safeguarding principles. So, and along with that, they're changing nappies and helping little fingers to do up their buttons or feed themselves, and then wiping up the mess that little people leave in their wake wherever they go, So it's really important that we look after our people. They're looking after the children. We need to look after them, and it's that simple. And what we try to do is offer flexibility wherever we can, in line with legislation like ratios and things. We offer support from both a wellbeing, financial, and career perspective. And because Busy Bees is the largest early years provider in the UK, we have a career path that is unrivaled. And we love to see internal colleagues progressing sideways, upwards, or across geographies. And it's why we offer initiatives. Like this year, we had the Talent Exchange Programme, where colleagues from across all of our territories were given an opportunity to go to Canada. And they were able to sort of share learning opportunities and build relationships across different territories, and have just an amazing time together. So we are trying to address the trends in our industry by using the things that we've got at our disposal within what is a fantastic company.
And what might be the candidate experience for someone who might want to explore a career with Busy Bees? What is the ideal candidate experience that you would like to see?
So we're trying to offer the candidate an experience that they want to go through. So we're trying to make it as non-cumbersome as possible. So removing unnecessary requirements within the process, and trying to really get to the nub of, what is their qualification, what is their experience in the childcare industry, what is their motivation, so why do they want to work with the children that we have in our care. We are trying to use technology where possible to do that. We're going through some trials at the moment around using asynchronous video platform. But within that, and as you'll know, with any sort of technology change, what you have to do is look at your existing process and then map that to something that is more palatable and also more consistent. Because previously, and what we're trying to do is really increase the speed of the candidate experience as well. So, if you see a job and you apply for it with Busy Bees, we're looking to get back in touch with you within hours of your application, ideally, and then match you and get you in front of the relevant hiring manager as quickly and as easily as we possibly can. One of the things that we recognise is the people that apply for our roles, if they're in the room with the children in a current role, then they haven't got access to their mobile phone because you're not allowed them in the rooms. So, break times and commuting times are really precious. So we try and offer flexibility around that so that we can capture our candidates at the time that they're available.
You mentioned the demand that's increasing, especially next year and the year after, right, in terms of funding. And that's definitely going to be a catalyst for this talent attraction, or even attracting the kind of talent that you need for your organization. So who would you say you'd attract the most? I mean, what kind of generation, or what age group is most interested in a career in early childhood education? Yes.
Yeah, it varies. I mean, if I chunk it up into three really crudely, so apologies for for anyone who's listening, but we have a huge interest from people at the start of their career, who maybe have been babysitting for younger siblings or relatives or friends, or just have that real kind of affinity and interest in working with young children and the rewards that brings. And then we'll go into typically one of our education programs and then come through sort of the other side as a qualified practitioner. We also get interest from parents. So if you're a parent and you have a child, then being near your child or having hours or a workplace that allows that flexibility around the hours that you have childcare for your children is quite appealing. And at Busy Bees, we offer considerable childcare discounts, which is really helpful for parents who are putting their children into nursery care, into private nursery. And so that invokes another set of candidates really that are interested in us. We also have interest from our more mature candidate pools, people who maybe have been in education or care or NHS type roles, healthcare roles, who have that real nurturing, vocational draw inside of them, but now the shifts or the roles that they've been doing are not quite as appealing, and maybe they're a grandparent and they enjoy being around the young children again. So again, that sort of invokes that interest and that desire to want to work in somewhere like Busy Bees for them. So we are open to all of the above. We have amazing opportunities, not just for the practitioners, but for chefs and catering staff and other sort of support roles. So, you know, there's lots of ways of being involved in the business, which is quite appealing to people.
Moving on to the skill sets or even the qualifications that you need to start a career or even to take your career forward in early childhood education, what might be some of these skills or certifications that you would look at?
So there is a misconception that health and social care as an education path can lead you into the childcare industry, and that's unfortunately at the moment not the case. You would have to complete a specific childcare approved qualification. Typically, there are lots of different variations of this in the UK, but they all lead into what is known as a level 3 childcare practitioner qualification. The most usual way of doing this is through an apprenticeship. Busy Bees has their own education and training business. We offer apprenticeships. We have over 10% of our workforce are currently on an apprenticeship. We are key utilisation. We utilise our levy, you know, very, very well. And we recruit anywhere between sort of 300, 500, 700 apprentices a year. And they are a thriving element of our workforce, and one that we will always continue. To grow people in this way and to give them that opportunity into the childcare industry is crucial for us as a business. And we love meeting the new apprentices every year, and they never fail to impress and inspire us.
I presume this would move directly into an element of retention, right? This is definitely an incentive to stay on and to give your best. And have you seen any kind of pattern around this?
Yes and no. I mean, I think, you know, everybody in the TA industry is seeing quite a lot of movement. It seems to have slowed down in H2 of 2023. I think the cost of living and interest rates has had a direct impact. But up until this point, you know, the workforce has been very transient and quite open to moving. I think what we're seeing as well from, you know, Gen Z, or, you know, whatever classification that our apprentices would fall into, is that, you know, there is less of a likelihood of a sort of job for life or even a loyalty to an organisation. We are really lucky in that we have people who have come through as apprentices. We have many stories of people who've come through as apprentices and remain with Busy Bees throughout their whole career, which is what we love to see. Because we do offer other opportunities above and beyond the initial level 3. There are management apprenticeships. There are lots of other types of learning and self-development, whether that's got a qualification attached to it or not, because we recognise that there is a lot of skills that people need to build within their career, within the early child sector, to enable them to move on to management roles, or roles that maybe lean more into the quality side of the business. So we have, you know, we're really lucky because of the size of the business that we can offer all of this support and opportunities to people.
So you briefly mentioned technology as being one of those key areas that you're focused on, right? In terms of improving the processes and all that. So how has technology impacted the recruitment process at Busy Bees?
Well, I'd love to say a lot, but at this stage, it's not so much. It's not where it needs to be. Our tech stack is going through a review. You know, a lot of our processes are manual and clunky. We are 40 years of, you know, as a business, but we are, you know, a really fast-growing business over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, and we haven't necessarily kept up with that from a technology perspective. We're on a journey to fix that. So I've got lots of different elements of work streams that I'm looking at currently, but at the heart of all of that are the childcare professionals that we work with. You know, what we're looking to do is make their lives less arduous from a process perspective, removing unnecessary manual processes and, you know, wasted time and effort, so they've got more time to spend with their amazing staff and the beautiful children that we have the privilege to care for. 2024 is really exciting for us. So we've got, as I say, lots of work streams on the go. One is quite huge around our ATS and how we can deliver more visibility around ROI and tracking and metrics and things to help inform the business and our community. So if you have me back next year, I can talk you through that a bit more. But at the moment, it's in its infancy.
Right. So there's a lot of transformative projects or initiatives that are in place now that's getting yourselves ready, that's getting the company ready, rather the whole network or the whole community ready for the big demand that's coming in.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. It's a lot of laying the foundations at the moment. And, we pick off some of the low-hanging fruit. We're able to do some things that, we can quite quickly implement and don't take too much of a transformation or a change curve to take people through the process. But there's other things that we need to do which are bigger and that are going to take a little bit longer.
Has there been any kind of change or any impact from the changing work dynamics that we're seeing? We're seeing more people work remotely, and we're seeing hybrid workforces coming in, seeing people work fully remotely. So has these recent changes in work dynamics impacted talent acquisition strategies for you?
Yeah, so I think from a frontline perspective, so if you think about our staff who work in the nurseries, if I think about the younger generation particularly, the expectation from them around hybrid working is much more heightened than when I first went into the workplace. I didn't expect to go and do a job and not work in an office 5 days a week. So, that expectation has changed. But I think if you unpick that and take that back to what I was talking about earlier around that nurturing and that desire to want to impact a young child's life, well, you can't do that at home or in a random coffee shop somewhere. So, you have to be in that location with that child to be able to affect that change and that impact. So that hasn't stayed the same. It just makes my team's life a little bit more difficult when we're trying to overcome some of the challenges from a candidate perspective. From a head office and management perspective, what it has meant is the recruiter that I have on my team who looks after our senior roles. She has much more of a wider remit to be able to go after talent nationwide effectively, or even globally if needs be, to fill the roles that we have within the business. We do like to try and have that kind of, hybrid model where possible, where people get together as a team, because it's quite nice to have that connection. But from a recruitment perspective, from a talent acquisition strategy perspective, it means that, we've got more scope and less barriers to be able to find the skills that we need to take the business forward.
What is your take on diversity and inclusion for this sector when it comes to talent acquisition? How do you get that into the processes and become part of the DNA of your recruitment process?
I mean, the one thing I'd say, there's content out there. Children don't see differences, so being around children who, from an early age, are open-minded, they're not, influenced by bias, is a joy, and we, need to reflect that and should be reflecting that in our workforce. We featured the men that we have in childcare earlier on this year, around the summer. It was the most engaged with social media campaign that we've done this year to date.
Interesting.
And the stories that we had from parents around the impact that those people had made on their children's lives was just fabulous and so heartwarming and beautiful. So, for me, it's massive. If you can't tell from my accent, I'm from Liverpool, in the UK, which is, known for the Beatles and some other sort of musical and famous people. I am so proud of my city, but from a socioeconomic perspective, we really have challenges. We have higher than average unemployment rates. We have the number of businesses and jobs per resident is lower than the national average. Yet it's a city full of vibrancy, creativity, fun, excitement. And if anyone attended the Eurovision Festival, which was held in Liverpool on behalf of the Ukraine earlier this year, you know what I'm talking about. Because of that background that I've got, in my role, I find immense satisfaction in the power to shape a workplace to reflect the richness and diverse perspectives and backgrounds of our world. We can actively challenge and dismantle biases in the recruitment process. It's within our gift. We can create an environment where everyone, regardless of background, can thrive and contribute meaningfully, or we can, be part of that. So it's not, for me, just about meeting quotas. It's about fostering an inclusive culture that values differences, recognises unique strengths, like the children in our nursery do. And to get together with the team, we are advocates for change within the organisation. We champion broader approaches to decision making. We fully believe, I believe, that by opening up opportunities for all, we don't just enhance the quality of our workforce, but we contribute to a more just and equitable society as a whole. So it's really quite deeply a passion of mine.
Absolutely rewarding instead.
Yeah.
And all these stories that you're talking about, especially the campaign that you mentioned earlier, I mean, those are really heartwarming to see, right? I mean, you're breaking through preconceived ideas or stereotypes and you're presenting something brand new, right? And it's refreshing to hear how this kind of impact goes such a long way, and in fact even can influence other people who are seeing themselves there and think, maybe it's a career for me as well, right? So it's nice to see that, the element of employer branding, so to speak, coming out very organically through the people that you have.
Yeah, and that is the beauty and the magic of this business, because it is all about people, and the different people that we have, and it is dispelling the myth of it's just a female-led industry,
Right.
because our children, when you walk around the nursery and you see a male figure in the room with them, they just particularly to the children who are like a bit more rough and ready or less, they just respond differently. Each child, because like children have different personalities, they respond to individuals in different ways, and it's just lovely to have that diversity of people within a nursery wherever possible. It's a special business, and I think the more people that can come into it with the right attitude, mindset, and motivation is key. I remember my two boys, 5 and 9, handing my children over to the nursery practitioner, all those years ago. You're filled with such a mix of emotions, because you're guilty because you're going to work, and you're jealous because that person's going to spend that day looking at your child and getting cuddles and hearing them laugh, while you're sat there listening to hiring manager going on about all the candidates aren't good enough, and how he's looking for that magical unicorn that we all know doesn't exist, and all of that. So it's tough, but when you know that the person who's doing that job and looking after your most precious person in your world is really motivated to give the best opportunity to children, and then you end up with this child who's ready for school, who can dress themselves, who can go to the toilet by themselves, who can feed themselves, who's sociable and knows their ABC, and you look at all of that effort that's gone in over those years to that point, it's really amazing. I think they do an amazing job.
Do you have a favorite recruitment story, or a kind of a most memorable story around recruitment that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, sure. So the first role that I did, where there was, when we talked earlier about that drive and that meaning for the role. So I've always loved being in TA. I love everything about it. But I went to work for the Crown Prosecution Service, which is a business, which is a department within the civil service. And the requirement there was to recruit lawyers into the civil service, to increase headcount, because there was some challenges from an ageing workforce perspective, and lots of other things. And within my first month, I think it was, I sat down with one of our lawyers to understand what the motivation was for that person working for the Crown Prosecution Service, as opposed to going working in the private sector, where the salaries were probably far higher and and more lucrative and everything else. And she described to me, because she works with the youth offenders as part of the youth court, and she described to me the impact of the decision making that as a Crown prosecutor in the CPS that you make which is basically if a child commits a crime that they are then found, guilty for, or they're in the process of, there is a decision to be made by the court whether the rehabilitation of that child takes place in an institution or whether it's within their family and relatives and community of which they live. And and she was describing how they very much look wherever possible for the latter, and how that support can be put in place. And I just felt like that was huge, and I just got really emotional thinking about my boys and thinking of if they got into trouble one day and they had to go through that process, and the impact of them going to an institution as opposed to being rehabilitated through their own family, and what that means. And I just thought the weight of that decision was huge, and my ability to influence and help the recruitment process to make sure we get the right people who are hopefully going to make the right decision as much as they possibly can. We're all human, right? So it's not perfect, but as much as possible. I just felt like that was really amazing, and I just take my hat off to anyone who does that job, to be honest.
That is significant, because you've got a decision to make between what kind of person perhaps this child turns out to be in the end, right? Depends on the experience, the rehabilitative or the kind of the rehabilitative experience that they have. I mean, one is whether it's definitely something that is, I can understand how this would have impacted you when you heard it, especially when you've got two young boys that you look out for. So thanks for sharing, Natalie. And finally,
I think when people talk about making a difference, this make a difference gets banded around, quite a lot. I mean, wow, that is making a difference in quite a significant way. And as I say, no one's perfect and no one's getting that decision right 100% of the time. But when you think about sometimes, I suppose, the decisions you make as a TA leader, should we go with this marketing channel, that marketing channel? It's not quite on the same scale as what they have to do. So yeah.
So Natalie, what advice would you give someone who's starting out in talent acquisition today? I mean, we've seen so many changes in terms of technology. I mean, you yourself, you're going through these different implementations in terms of process and technology, and how you need to look at preferences differently when it comes to candidate experience, right? So what advice would you give someone who's starting out in talent acquisition today?
Well, the first thing I would say to them is they're really lucky, because they're about to embark on one of the most exciting, fun, rewarding careers I can think of. Honestly, I mean, like anyone, I fell into it, and I love it. I think the advice I would give is you have access now to much more rich information, more varied information and content across the platforms that are accessible to you. But so try not to get overwhelmed. So just try and focus in on the things that are really going to mean something to you and your business, and go after that rather than trying to become an expert in everything. I would say be open-minded. I think, as you say, technology has moved on so significantly in the last, the last couple of years, hugely, but before that, again, at a rapid pace. That you need to be open-minded. You need to be able to, shift and change and learn with the industry, and not be stuck in, this is my old way of doing it, and that's going to live forever, because it doesn't. But there are some heritage information that if you can get that under your belt, it will serve you well. Things around employer branding and candidate experience, those fundamentals, I think, have stayed pretty static for the past 20 years. I would say build your network. I'm incredibly lucky. I'm part of the RL 100. I'm on the advisory board for the firm, and this enables me to spend time with some incredible individuals who've got much more bigger and important roles than I have across various sectors, and they're really willing to share ideas, knowledge, look out for us, and even just enable you to sort of sound off when you're having a bit of a tough time. And that has been so influential and so important to my career, particularly over the last few years, which have been quite difficult. And I would just say thank you to all of those people that have been in my network, because I couldn't have got through some of it without you. So they've been amazing. And just the last thing is just have fun. It's stressful, it's frustrating, it's ridiculous sometimes, and it's mad. But I hope that you do love it as much as I do, because I've had a ball.
Well, thank you very much for your time, your insights, and all these experiences that you've just shared with us, Natalie. And for the benefit of those listening in, whoever wants to pick up a conversation with you later, what may be the best way to get in touch with you? Which is your preferred channel, Natalie?
Yeah, so just find me on LinkedIn, Natalie Edmunds at Busy Bees. I'd love to connect with you and catch up.
Thank you so much, Natalie, and I wish you a good rest of the week. And we have been in conversation with Natalie Edmunds of Busy Bees Nurseries. Thank you for joining us, and remember to subscribe to stay tuned for more weekly episodes of All in Recruitment.